What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Key Smash Studios video. Today we're going to be setting up an Atlas server, and we're going to be doing it by using a program called Atlas Server Control. As with the other server videos, I'm going to do a step-by-step guide, give you everything that you need to know, and walk you all the way through the process from start to server launch. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. I'm always more than happy to help, and we'll hop right into it after I say if you find this to be helpful, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, all that jazz. It really does help us. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go right down into the description of this video. You're going to find a link to this website right here. You're going to go here and you're going to download Atlas Server Control. So this is just a program to help you set up the server faster. All it does is it creates a INI file and a bash file to boot up the server, and it does the sort of the hard part of this for you, so you don't have to do it. Once you've downloaded it, you're going to open it up and install it. You may get some message about how it's not safe or something like that. You can ignore it, just continue installing it anyways. Windows just doesn't really know programs like this, so you can install it wherever you would like. It does not really matter. Just make sure that you're installing it and changing where you want to install it here rather than later. With these types of games, they usually need SteamCMD installed, so it's better to change where it's installed here rather than doing it after you've installed it and it gets a little messy. So go ahead and pick the place where you want to install it here. It should be a fairly fast install process. There's not too much to this program. Now, after you've installed it, you just need to navigate to the folder where it is installed. Once you're inside this folder, you're going to see a bunch of different things. You're really just looking for the Atlas Server Control.exe application. Just double click on that. It's going to pop up a little thing, I'll pull this over here, where it says that it's downloading SteamCMD installer, and it pops up this little SteamCMD exe. Just let this run. It won't take too long. All it is it's installing a way for the server to download content from Steam without having to open up the Steam program as a whole. You can see now that it has finished SteamCMD install. Now that it's finished SteamCMD, we're just going to click through this wizard and set this up. So this is a new installation. This is where we are going to specify where the actual bulk of the server files are going to be. So the program itself is separate from the server location. So you can select a different location to store the server, or just put a new folder in the place where you stored the server. Whatever it is that you choose to do, you can do that here. So I just made a new folder, and I'm going to select this one. And we can see that right after I hit OK, SteamCMD launches up. And it's going to run an install process for the game server. So each game that has a dedicated server on Steam, you can log in with SteamCMD, and this is something you can do manually if you choose to do so. But if you log into SteamCMD, you can go in and download the dedicated game server. And this is all that this process is doing. So I will be back after it finishes this install process. This should take like 5-10 minutes, depending on your internet speed. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer. But once this finishes, I will be back. Alright, so after that SteamCMD window finishes, it should pop up a map selection grid like this. You can select whichever map template you'd like, 4x4 being the largest, 1x1 being the smallest. For now, I am going to select 1x1 just because it's a little bit faster. You can select next. Alright, so here we're going to do a couple of different things. First things first, we're going to put a title here. So This is just an internal program title, and the second thing we're going to do is change our server IP address, and this is going to be our internal IP address. And the fastest way we can do this is we open up our command prompt. So if you miss that, I come down here to the search thing, I type in CMD, and it opens up command prompt. I'm going to type in ipconfig, ipconfig, and this is going to dump out my internal IP address, which is this one right here, 192.168.0.25. This one isn't so bad to have visible, you just don't want to display your external one. So 192.168.0.25. I'm not going to change these ports. I will just say really quickly, typically in these games, usually you see a game port in the low thousands and then a query port in the 27,000-ish range. Arc, which is made by the same company, the same base overall company, uses 27,000, and that's because it's a seamless data stream port. These will sort of not stream if you're not on the island and things like that. So we just want to make sure that our query port is way up there in numbers. If you'd like to see a video on how ports work and what they are, I will put a link right here for you to go see that video. But for now, I'm just going to leave these as default, and we'll come back to these. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot so I know what these ports are for later. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to input my server admin password. This will change. This is just a simple first time setup. I'm not going to change my allowed player count or reserved player count. And I'm going to hit next. Once that's finished, I can hit finish. That's the initial setup that's done. An Atlas server control will open up. So what you can see after we open up the Atlas server control thing, and it's important to note that this should be run in administrator mode. So if you haven't, just close it out, reopen it in admin mode, and you'll be good. Just run it as an administrator. But we're primarily going to use two of these four top bars here. Primarily these two. We won't really be using the server grid editor. If you'd like to make your own map, you are capable of doing so. But you know, for right now, we're not going to mess with it. In the event scheduler, if you'd like to schedule reboots every day, you can do that. But we are primarily interested in setting up our server to be up and running in as little trouble as possible. So the best way to do that is to use the Blackwood map. If you come down here to the map name, you can change maps from Ocean, which is the one that you create yourself, to Blackwood. Blackwood is a 1.4 gigabyte map that is available on Steam as a DLC. It's totally free, and it's just the fastest way to get up and running. So the first thing that we need to work on is to work on port configuration. So port configuration is how the game is connected to our network, and we are going to go into our router. So if you don't know how to do port forwarding, I will put a link here to a whole video on an example of port forwarding, or you can watch along as I go through this. The first thing you want to do is go to portforward.com. Then you're going to go to a list of all routers, and you're going to find the router that corresponds with the router that's in your house. If you don't know what router you have in your house, go find a little box that goes in to your house or apartment. It's just wherever your internet comes in, and you're going to try to find a make and a model. So this is sorting by make, and then once you find the make, you find the model. So let's say you have an A-Link make. You can skip the ad. You then find the model, if you have a Roadrunner 24, and then it gives you a step-by-step guide for your particular router on how to enable port forwarding. So what you want to do to find your router is you're going to come do another ipconfig. Underneath your default gateway, you'll see 192 or something like this. you're going to find a router address. This is on your internal network. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that router address, go into your internet browser, and you're going to type in that same default gateway, and you're going to navigate to that web page. So I'm going to pull over this here. This is my router. I've done this a few times, so I will go through this pretty quickly, but essentially you're going to be looking for some way to do port forwarding, and you're going to set up a port forwarding service for that computer. So you are going to send this to your specific computer. As I said before, this is my internal IP address. This isn't that dangerous to know. So I am 0.25. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a port forwarding custom service here. This is my IPv4 internal address, so I am going to forward to that. And I am going to give it the starting ports that appear here. So the first thing I'm going to do is our game port at 5760. And I'm going to set this as TCP UDP 5760, 5760. And I'm going to hit apply. So that's one of the 3 ports that we need to forward. So I'm going to do this again. And this time we're going to go after our seamless port, which is 2700. I'm going to name this one Atlas 2 2700. Actually, it's 27,000. And one last one, we're going to do the query port. We don't need to worry about Archon unless you're doing remote connection. So 57,560. And I will hit apply. So this is the last of the 3 that I need to set up. You can change your server name, and the server address we'll put in a second. I'm just going to do that last because then I have to blur out in the video because this is your external IP address that will go there. I'll just hop right over here to this. This is the local shard. When you make a 1x1 map, that 1x1 map is 1 shard. If you made a 2x2, it would be 4 shard, 3x3, it would be 9, so on and so forth. Each time you add one of those shards, it takes about 4 gigs and 2 cores. So if you have 8 cores on your computer, you really should run, you know, a 1x1 map unless you're only running the server and not the game. If you'd like to play the game, you should really run a 1x1 if you have 8 cores on your computer. If you have more cores than that, obviously you can create a larger map. But for right now, we're using, as I mentioned, the Blackwood one, which is a 1 shard map. And you can see that we have a status here of that server. On the left side, you can see that we have Redis database and tile map server. We don't need to change any options in this, but we do need to start those later on. I just wanted to point out that they're here and they're red. When we're ready to go and we've done our port forwarding, we need to make sure that those are green later. We can also enable automatic updates. It basically searches for an update. When one finds one, it shuts down the server, updates, and then pops back up. One last thing for us to consider on our playthrough is any of the options that you would like to set up here. So these are, much like in the Arc server video, a bunch of different options that you can do to change how you would play the game. So like, for example, if you want to level up in your oxygen to make yourself swim faster, you can make this 1.5, something like that. If you would like to lower the structure resource multiplier, you can change that to 0.5. There are more options available. I will scroll down to some of the more common ones. If you come up here and click this plus, you can see the ones that you can add. But primarily the most common ones that people care about are EXP multipliers, taming speed multipliers, harvest multipliers, and so on and so forth. So If you come down to our multipliers, say you wanted to have a 2x server, not a 22x server, but if you wanted to have a 2x server, you could do that, and that's all you need to do to set that up. So as far as booting this goes, we need to start the redistribution database first. And the first time I would recommend keeping this not hidden, but later you can hide it. And I'll show you what this means and what I mean by this in a second. When I hit start here, it opens up a little window. This is the database that the server uses. This is primarily because sometimes they use multiple servers. Those shards that I was talking about, if you have a 2x2 map, it's technically running 4 servers, and it uses databases to make those servers communicate. But for our 1x1, we still have to run this. It is what it is, but it pops up this window. After you're sure that it's working, the next time you can switch it to hidden, but I'll worry about that later. Then we're going to come down here and start our territory map. We don't need to change anything in here, as I said before, and again, after we're sure that this works, we can switch it to hidden, but for right now, I'm going to show that it pops up. You don't really need to worry too much about them. Just make sure that they're on prior to coming here and starting the server. Once that's done, you can hit Start Cluster. This starts all of the shards in your server. You can see that our territory map has now updated. And our server is starting to load. You'll see a few things pop up here on the initial load. Then it'll say like primal game data loaded, and it'll go through a whole thing. Right now it's still booting. There's the primal game data loading. We'll see our memory going up and up and up as it's booting up. There it goes. There's the full startup, and we're good to go. Once it's finished with its startup, we can open up Atlas. Once Atlas opens up, we just click Join Online Atlas. And it's worth noting that when you first open up Atlas, it'll start on official servers like this. So you want to go from official servers down here to unofficial. And then if you're working on the Blackwood map, uncheck Show Atlas Map and check Show Non-Atlas Servers, and it'll show Blackwood. And then you just search for your server. Here is the server that we have set up. I can join it. We can see it on the internet. Life is good. If you don't have the map downloaded at this time, it'll pop up a little thing in their Steam overlay saying you need to download the map. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions on this at all, please let me know down in the comments below. You can find a link to the Discord in the description of the video. Hop in there, join up, let me know if you have any questions. That's a great place to get a hold of me. But yeah, I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help us out, and hopefully we'll see you next week.